Thank you, thank you. We are really looking forward to this session, so thank you for joining us today. I think this is going to be an amazing talk. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what Federico is going to be working on with his organization. So this is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll do some introductions. So I'm Joe Raczynski, as we mentioned before, part of technologist for Thomson Reuters. Bifurcated role, so I help with our customers and what's going on in the legal landscape when it comes to all of our products and services. Also spend a lot of time on thought leadership, so the crypto sphere as well as AI and blockchain, all those types of things.
Good. I'm Federico Ast. I am from Buenos Aires, and I am an entrepreneur in the blockchain space. I have been working on blockchain for quite some years now. And what we do at Kleros is a use of blockchain for arbitration. So I'll speak a bit more about that later. So that's a bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so we are going to do several things here. This is definitely going to be interactive, so I'd love to people have your phones out just in case some questions pop up. But we're going to do some level setting on blockchain. So we'll talk about what's going on in that space, what it is, if people have questions on that. We'll get into the current state of blockchain and legal, what's happening in law firms, what's happening in government agencies across the board. So we'll jump into that as well. And then blockchain and Thomson Reuters. So what is Thomson Reuters doing in this space? I'll spend a few minutes on this just to give you an idea of where we're going with this. And then smart contracts. This is probably the biggest term that you will hear about if you haven't heard about already. It is key to this as we go forward within the blockchain industry. And then, of course, we're going to hear from Federico about Kleros and what they're working on, which is an amazing new technology and startup. And then we'll both talk a little bit about the future of blockchain, where we're going with all of this. So, first question, if you'd all be so kind as to break out your phones. Question one is, how would you rate your knowledge of blockchain currently? Answer one, I cannot spell blockchain or blockchain. I'm beginning to wrap my head around this concept. The third, I've read a lot about it, and I'm sliding down the rabbit hole. And then the fourth is, I am Satoshi Nakamoto, so you're an expert. All right, I'll give you a few seconds to enter that in. All right. Heavily on the beginners, and that makes complete sense. It is a brand new technology.
There's Satoshi in the... Oh.
There is, Satoshi is here. Aren't we lucky? All right, so why don't we do a little bit of a debrief on blockchain? I'll just spend a few seconds on this. So we'll need to pull down, one other question, I apologize. The next question is actually, have you bought any cryptocurrency at this stage? Yes or no? 91% so far is a no. 9% yes. Okay, so early days, and it truly is early days when you talk about this technology and what's happening with it. So let's actually do a bit of a debrief on this technology. So the history and what it is, what's happening with it, where to come from, all this stuff. It's kind of an amazing story. So from all things, blockchain is the underlying technology behind Bitcoin. I think we've all heard of Bitcoin at this point in time, but it's the fundamental underlying technology for that. So think back now, we know from the journalist speaking earlier, exactly 10 years ago, almost to the month, we had a small financial crisis, right? So all these massive banks had been around for 120 years, 130 years, were going under, completely going under. Larger other organizations were in the same situation. So you had General Motors in the US, you had Ford, all on the precipice of falling into the abyss. Major problem. So you had, and this is where it gets a little weird, you had an individual or a group of people come together and say, well, we're seeing that all these large organizations, which are the central point of failure, are going under. What can we do to change that paradigm? Going from a single institution that owns and operates everything, all of that information, to distributing that. So the idea behind this is that you're going from one bank to potentially 10,000 servers, computers, or nodes around the world that are running the exact same software and have to verify that something happened. So fundamentally, what blockchain is a database that's distributed. That's all it is. So whenever someone says blockchain and you're not familiar with it, that's the way that I think about it. But what's so radical and what's so special about this technology is what you see up here. It's peer-to-peer, so it goes around all the banks, it goes around all the government agencies currently, fundamentally. There's no central banking authority. It relies on high-end cryptography. So cryptography that's been around since the 80s. These are mathematical proofs that something is true, something is accurate. That's what that is. The nodes have to agree what this is. So fundamentally, that's what we're talking about when we're looking at blockchain. Now, one more question for you. Does your firm or your organization actually have a blockchain practice group at this stage? Very curious to see this because there's more and more firms that are starting to go down this road, but love to hear your input on it. We're almost at a 50-50. That's impressive, and that's great. Okay. So for the sake of time, I'll move along, but that's good to know. So what is actually happening, the current state of blockchain and legal right now? 2016, I spent an inordinate amount of time traveling throughout the US, talking with CIOs, managing partners about what they're doing. Are they aware of blockchain, the technology, how it could have an impact on people's lives? And it's been amazing to see. So clearly there's been a change. $3.5 billion invested in the last 18 months. All the biggest banks around the world said, in the beginning, they're like, this is kind of a joke for geeky people like Joe who mined Bitcoin in 2011 and, see what happens with it. They said, no, this is legitimate technology that we can leverage. And if we don't leverage it, then we could be thrown into obsolescence ourselves. So top 50 banks in the world joined a consortium called R3. Now law firms are starting to join the same group. Going forward, 2017 last year was a year of the pilot, so law firms are setting up practice areas, just like we saw with 50% of you all who had voted, setting up practice areas, big deal. Some of them are starting to take Bitcoin. Sort of gimmicky in a way, but there's some purpose behind that. One reason that a law firm would want to do that is because they could actually help the attorneys understand what it's like to have a digital wallet. So the not too distant future, if you do not have a digital wallet, and it's different than what you would find with your bank wallet or whatever you have, it helps them understand what it is to take Bitcoin or take a cryptocurrency. It's a different process. The other reason is really branding. It lets the law firm say, hey, client A, you're really technologically forward. This is something that we're also into as well. So lots of collaboration with universities, and last year clearly was the year of the ICO, the initial coin offering, a way to raise money or funds going through this process using blockchain. So the current state, and this is what we're seeing right now, law firms are consulting across the board on ICOs, how to take smaller companies public, in a way, to raise money using blockchain. Attorneys are actually starting to code. I've always gone back and forth about this, talking with firms, saying, does it make sense for attorneys to actually code? There are consortiums in this space right now that told me in the last 3 weeks that they're getting calls every single day from attorneys that say, what can I do to learn how to code? And one of the biggest platforms out there is Ethereum. And the way you code is through Solidity. So that's the very beginning stage of that. Law firms are also creating blockchain-enabled client loyalty programs, so incentivizing their lawyers to do something, and then they'll give them their own cryptocurrency to be able to do that. Tokenized wallets are also gaining traction in some areas. Again, teaching people how to use these digital wallets. Clearly, consortia are taking off left and right. Global Legal Blockchain Consortium is one of the bigger ones out there. Consensus is another one. And of course, the Accord project, helping attorneys, law firms develop smart contracts, which we'll get into in a second. So, the current state for 2019, and these are some predictions going out a little bit further. And the thought around this is that with blockchain, it's such early days. We're at a point where it's almost akin to the beginning of the internet, and blockchain might go into the background, like when you talk about TCP, so the underlying infrastructure of the way the internet works. We don't talk about these days. You click on something and it gets there. We might be saying the same thing about blockchain. It may not be a word that we constantly use all the time in the future. Sadly, I have a bit of a sad prediction up here, but the year of the kidnapping or wallet attacks. Because we're moving from a central repository like an Equifax or a large organization holding that information to each one of us holding all of your own personal information on your digital wallet, you may be the target. It's not going to be those large organizations. It's going to be an individual that's targeted. So sadly, we might have that. 2020, the biggest applications may be integrated using blockchain, again, sort of behind the scenes. 2021, next generation of blockchain-enabled functionality will also start to emerge. So those are the main things that are happening. Now, What is Thomson Reuters doing in this space? We're spending a lot of time trying to understand this, investment in this space as well. The first thing was Andy Wishart announced about a month ago the Global Legal Blockchain Consortium that Thomson Reuters has joined. These are around coming up with solid ideas of how to proceed in going forward with this technology in the legal space. Thomson Reuters Practical Law is every day gathering more and more information to publicize, to put within the system to make things better for you, the user. And then over on my left-hand side, we have two services that are out there, Block 1 IQ and Block 1 ID for Ethereum. So Block 1 IQ is a really neat service that JP Morgan Chase is using right now. It's an oracle. What an oracle is a trusted source of information. It means that anytime you want a transaction to go through, you need to verify that. And so what Thomson Reuters has done is created this Block 1 IQ, which allows you to verify that a stock is at a certain price at a certain time on a certain day. And it's, yes, that is true. So that's what that is. The Block 1 ID for Ethereum is basically linking your Twitter account to your wallet. Different reasons for that, but we can go into that offline if you'd like. So, last few things that I want to mention along the lines of things that are moving forward. Contract Express is integrating with Integra Ledger. This is a kind of a big, cool thing. Very beginning, early stages. Again, something that Andy Wishart talked about recently. The idea behind this is using Contract Express, you're able to go through a series of questions, output a specific document, then take that document, I'm going to point it over here even though it's warm, basically take that document and two things are happening. One, when it's done, it's actually getting a specific code, a hash, basically saying that this document is what it is. And if anybody were to change even a period or a letter in that document, it no longer exists. It would have a different hash altogether. So at one point in time, it's given a hash and an ID, and it's also stored in another location. So that's what's going on with Contract Express and Integra Ledger. So one of the last things that I want to go through, because I think this is key in the legal world to understand, and that is the smart contract and coding. So we're all today attorneys, even though you may not be an attorney, and your goal is to write a will. And this will is extremely silly, and I apologize for that in advance. Basically, it says, upon your parents' death, there are two kids, Kid A and Kid B. Both of them have to be married in order for them to split the estate. If one kid is married and one is not, the kid that's married gets 100% of the estate. Silly, I know. So it's written up. Maybe it's written up in Drafting Assistant or Contract Express. Then it's codified, and this is what's changing right now. So it's going to be codified. I'm not expecting anybody to actually go through this code, but what happens is, once it's codified, every single day through an API call, a simple computer-to-computer call to a trusted source, maybe Thomson Reuters, maybe your government agency, it looks to find out whether or not the parents are alive. One day it comes back, heartless, and says, the parents have passed. What's my next task? The computer's next task is another API call to find out whether or not both kids are married. Comes back and says, one is married, one is not. Sad for that one individual. And so for the sake of argument, all the assets are liquid. It transfers all that money to the kid. In essence, this is what a smart contract is. It's a little bit of code on the blockchain that executes based on information, X or Y. So that's sort of tees up what we're going to be talking about a little bit with Federico when it comes to Kleros and what they're working on, which I personally think is amazing, but he'll tell you more about.
Thank you, Joe. So there's a question we didn't ask. Who thinks that this blockchain thing is fundamentally a very big scam? So, because people think that because they have seen lots of ICOs, like raising millions and millions and delivering very little in terms of product, right? And so people see the token sales, but they don't see what people are building with that. So I'm going to show you one specific application of blockchain, in particular, into the legal industry. That's what I'm working on. And it's called Kleros. So imagine Alice, an entrepreneur from France, and she hires Bob, a developer from Guatemala. He does website design for a contract, and he delivers the product, right? And then she's not happy because she says that what he did is not what she expected, so there's a dispute there. And she's not going to Guatemala to find a lawyer and to go to court like for a $500 dispute, right? It doesn't make any sense. Now, imagine if instead of paying him directly, she had sent the payment into a smart contract that acts as an escrow, and they both agree that if there is a dispute on this contract, it's going to be solved by Kleros, that is going to be an arbitrator, right? So everything is agreed before the dispute happens. So the dispute happens, and then this dispute goes to Kleros, and Kleros is going to select in an automatic way a number of experts who are going to be like jurors for this dispute. And these guys are going to analyze the contract between the parties. They're going to see the evidence, and they're going to vote, right? So they are all experts in websites from all over the world. And they vote that Alice wins. So the contract that held the funds in escrow is going to send the funds back to her, right? And then she can recover the money that she had put there without going to court, right? So a very big question is, how are these jurors or arbitrators selected? And Kleros is called, so it means randomness in Greek, because it's based on how the ancient courts worked in Greece, right? So imagine this woman, she's in Japan, and she's a designer, and she works during the day in an agency, and during the evening, she wants to make some extra money by doing arbitration about website disputes. So to become an arbitrator, she has to get this token. It's a digital cryptocurrency that's called Pinakion. It's based on the name that the ID had in the ancient Greek courts. So that's how jurors were selected in trials in ancient Greece. And remember, they had these big crowd trials, so these big rooms where they had like 50 jurors. And the whole system was based on the fact that all the citizens should be allowed to judge. Of course, all citizens who are not female or slaves. So this woman has to put this token, this Pinakion token, into a court. In this case, she's going to deposit this into the freelancing court, because Kleros can be used for lots of use cases, but she's going to put it into the freelancing court because it's a freelancing dispute about websites. And many more people are going to put this token there, and this gives them the right to be drawn as jurors for arbitration, right? And so it's like a random selection machine. So of all these guys who deposit the token, so only some of them are drawn, and they get the right to be jurors on the case and to collect arbitration fee for their work. So the big question is, how do you make these guys who are all over the world be honest in their arbitration? What's the big risk here? That they just see the contract and they see the evidence and they just vote like randomly A, B, B, A without even looking at the evidence. So that's a big risk here. To solve this, Kleros uses game theory. So you may know this book. It's by Thomas Schelling, Nobel Prize in Economics, 2005. And he wrote, remember the prisoner's dilemma, where you have two guys in different rooms and they have to decide what to say depending on what the other says. They go free or they stay in jail. So this is that kind of this type of exercise that Schelling researched on, and this book is about that type. And here he makes this example, right? Each one of you pick one of the squares, and if you pick the same that I picked, we both get $20. Have you picked one? Yeah. A1, who picked A1? No one. A6? Right? I don't see anything that you're saying, but but yeah, so people pick A6 because it seems special, right? All of them would be perfectly fine. But since you thought I would pick A6 because it's special, and I thought you would pick that one because you thought I would pick that one, then we coordinate to pick the same one, and we both win. Another example, pick one number, and I will pick, and we have to pick the same, and we both win. So anyone picked 1,000? Right. So see that when we are put into this type of games in this type of scenario for decisions, we tend to coordinate in some ways, right? And this point that we chose independently from each other, because we couldn't communicate in the process, it's called the Schelling point. So it's the place where different people coordinate based on this decision scenario where they have to choose in an independent way. So if we apply the game theory logic of the Schelling point to arbitration, and we have all the jurors analyze the same piece of evidence, the same website, the same contract, and they are all experts in website development, and we reward those who vote as the others, as we did before, so we can expect that they will, each of them, vote for the true answer for this problem. Understand the logic behind this? And so, those who vote like the majority are going to be rewarded. Those who vote like the different from the majority, we can expect that they didn't do their job properly, that maybe they just voted randomly to collect money fast, and so they are going to be penalized by losing the token that they had deposited in the court, right? So this is how Kleros tries to align the economic incentives of jurors for voting the truth. And so on average, people trying to game the system by not taking a look at the evidence, they're going to, once they're going to vote like the majority and win. But if they keep playing this game, just voting randomly, in the long run, they're going to lose more money than they make, and then they are going to exit the system. And the arbitrators that do a fine work, like analyzing the evidence and being experts in the type of dispute, so they will make money and they will stay there. So the system has like a self-protecting way of keeping the honest people inside the arbitration and keeping out the liars and the people who want to abuse it. So all this explanation that I'm guessing that it's not very common in law conferences, all this game theory, so this is called, it's part of a new field that's called crypto economics. It's about how you generate incentives, the right incentives, to create the right behavior in like distributed systems, right? This is a distributed system of jurors for decentralized justice, as Bitcoin is a decentralized system of incentives for a number of computers to agree on a single ledger, right? So you are going to hear a lot more of this crypto economic world in the time to come because it's going to start affecting different industries, in this case law, but many others as well. Use cases of Kleros, there are tons of them, mostly in the small claim like use cases. For example, e-commerce companies, they have lots of disputes, and they can use Kleros for arbitration cheaper and faster than what exists now. Parking violations, so imagine the government, so they take a picture of a car parked in the wrong place, and this goes to a tribunal of citizens, and they decide if the car was indeed parked in the wrong place or not, and that then applies a fine to the driver. Lots of small insurance claims about car crashes, who has to pay who was at fault here, insurance company A or insurance company B. So this can be solved cheaper and faster with Kleros. And then lots of small claims, like user against credit card company, user against utility company, or whatever other like small claim in this area. And then there are tons of other use cases that can pop up in time. So imagine the VAR, right? The VAR is not very different from this. Like you have some video that everyone can see, and now you have a referee that watches this and says it's penalty or not. Why not crowdsource the decision in the crowd, right? I guess it would make a better job. Like, so you can't bribe like 5,000 people, right? And you know, it's not maybe the lowest hanging fruit, but it's something that is within the possibilities in the midterm, I think. So basically, Kleros is a protocol, a network of jurors and of incentives, And then on top of Kleros, there's going to be a lot of companies being built. Like you have now you have the Bitcoin protocol, and on top of that you have like wallets like Coinbase or others. So imagine Kleros being a protocol, and on top of that, someone will build a company for travel disputes, another for e-gaming disputes, insurance, and whatever. And they all use Kleros as protocol for having the incentive for jurors. Well, as you know, we are incubated by Thomson Reuters, and we are doing this job of analyzing use cases. And I am really looking forward to hearing from you. Like, I'm going to be around all day, so if you think you have cases for this, because we don't even know which are the use cases for Kleros. We know some of them, but there are tons, right? So we are doing, Thomson Reuters, this very thorough job of analyzing all the areas where Kleros can bring solutions for dispute resolution. And then I think that's it. So thank you.
Honestly, I think it's an amazing concept, being able to use the blockchain to help people resolve issues much easier, much faster. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how things progress. All right, I guess this is our second to last question. So if you'd be so kind as to break out your phones. This question is, have you ever used a DApp? You may not be familiar with what a DApp is, but we'll explain that in just a second. So have you ever used a DApp, yes or no? And so might as well start talking about what a DApp is now. So it's a decentralized application. A decentralized application. So yeah, it makes sense. It's going to be phenomenal to watch this all sort of evolve over the next several years as people start using this technology, start downloading these DApps, these decentralized applications up to your phone that are not controlled by a central authority, a central power, a central server, so to speak. So what we're going to get to is a point of the future of blockchain, where everything will be tokenized. So anything that you own, your car, your house, your condo, your flat, all of that will be tokenized. What does that mean? It means that it's on the blockchain, it is easy to exchange between one person and another, and you don't need a third party, another organization to verify that that happens. The blockchain will serve as that organization. So this will help with rental properties, timeshares, small businesses, and they can cover pretty much anything and everything. We're already seeing about 1,600 or so different cryptocurrencies that are out there right now, but the idea is you'll be able to take real estate and send that to somebody with ease using blockchain. So when we're talking about DApps, these decentralized applications, we're going to be moving away from these central authorities, and we all know what's going on with Facebook these days and what's going on with Google these days in terms of central organizations that are collecting everything they can possibly collect on you to develop a profile about you so they can eventually market to you, right? So Facebook does that, Google does that, but we're going to move to a direction where companies like Peepith, which is Twitter, it's like a Twitter, but everything is run through the blockchain. So it's encrypted, it's safe, it's secure, but you have control over that information. And there's no censorship if you ever had to worry about censorship. Another organization out there is IPFS, which stands for Interplanetary File System. What does that mean? It means that any one of us who has a computer with a hard drive can rent that out. So imagine a document management system, a DMS, at the law firm. And I know this is going to get out there a little bit, but the idea that you're able to distribute all of those documents throughout the world to different computers, you might say, that sounds crazy, and it is. But what happens is they break up that document into sections, they encrypt it, and then they distribute it among a ton of different servers. It could have an impact on this company here, Amazon, so Amazon Web Services, and what they do. That's just another area that we're sort of watching. And then if you were ever to buy and sell these tokens, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the other 1,500 or 1,600 of them, currently you go through a central exchange. There are 140 different central exchanges around the world right now. So you go, you transfer your pounds, your dollars, your euros into this bank, this exchange, then you buy your cryptocurrency, you put it into your digital wallet, so it's safe and secure, only you have that on your phone or on your device. But those too are central authorities that could be hacked. They could be attacked, right? So what you're going to move to is something like this. It's called the 0x project. And what it's doing is it's taking that exchange and distributing that. So you're going to get to the point where if you've ever used one of those systems to download music potentially illegally, it's using a Tor, right? So you're connecting to computers all over the world that have a song or a movie, and you're downloading from all of these computers that are private. The same sort of thing is going to happen with this particular application. So that's a big one that's coming out. So one last question. Question number 5. After all of this chatter, what do you think? Is this vaporware? Do you think that it will actually mildly impact legal? Or will this be transformative? Will this truly change the way that we work, we operate, the way we interact with our clients? I'd love to hear the answer to this one. All right. Good, good. I mean, kind of surprised by that. I thought there might be a few more people saying that it might be vaporware. All right, I think we're going to come to a close with that, but we have 2 minutes left. Should we try for a question or two? I know that many of you are going to have a bunch of questions.
A quick question around the cryptocurrency and in relative to law. There's obviously a big requirement around know your client and source of funds, which kind of blockchain makes that a little bit difficult for you to be able to track, justify, or even evidence the source of funds or information around know your client. So I'm just curious to see how, from a risk perspective, how you feel blockchain can tackle that.
It's for me.
I can answer it, no problem. I'll give a quick reflection on that. Yeah. 2 ways of looking at it. One, with cryptocurrencies, it's actually more trackable. Yeah. Because when you look at the blockchain, it's something you can look at every single transaction that's ever happened, especially with like Bitcoin. The flip side, there are cryptocurrencies out there right now that are called privacy coins. One is Monero, one is Zcash, and those are what the criminals are using now because they are untraceable. They have algorithms baked into them that make it very, very difficult to track.
Yeah, I was going to speak about Monero. In the end, people will be able to do with cryptocurrencies what now they do with cash, right? People have used always cash for that kind of criminal activities, and these privacy coins is what's going to be used. I'm guessing that, so the place where governments still can regulate is in the on-ramp and the off-ramp of the, so you can't control what's going on the blockchain, right? It's like what the record companies learned about torrent file sharing, that they couldn't like switch off every computer in the network, right? Right. But yes, governments still have power when people want to convert from crypto to fiat money, and so that's the way to regulate it.
Hi, I'm Lorraine. My concern is in relation to the rule of law. How do you ensure kind of technologies such as this ensure equality for everyone in the world? For example, like let's say if someone doesn't have a phone or access to participate, for example, in the arbitration process, how do we manage that?
Oh, well, I think that's blockchain is the perfect tool for that. Like, imagine some customer from a country, so developed country, and you want to hire someone from an emerging economy, right? Let's say from my country, Argentina, right? Right now, maybe you don't want to do it because, like, what if there's a dispute there, right, with this contractor? So are you going to court in Argentina for that, for a small claim? No, you're not going. But like Kleros, so if you and the contractor agree that you are going, instead of paying him directly, you pay to the smart contract, then if he doesn't comply, then you get your money back, right? So now this guy in Argentina can, you are going to hire him because you have some institutional infrastructure that gives you some safety that you're not going to like send your money to someone that is not going to do anything, right? This smart contract and this Kleros resolution for this type of disputes actually gives the opportunity to guys from Argentina to work for the world economy, right? As the crowdfunding in crypto gives people from Argentina, so like me, the possibility of having access to resources to carry on a project that would otherwise only be available in, I don't know, in Silicon Valley, right? Or
Exactly.
US. So this is a very powerful tool for democratizing lots of things in the world, and those who are going to benefit the most are the emerging economies.
Okay. All right, I think we may have to leave it there, but we thank you very much for your time. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you.